The Ride Home Rants podcast is brought to you by Reaper Apparel Company. Reaper Apparel offers a casual line of superb fit, finish, and comfort. We design for those who refuse to die slowly and choose to live untamed. For those who aren't afraid to face the dark, for the ones that thrive in it, and for those who can appreciate life through a grim lens. That's Reaper Apparel Company. Go to the link in the description of this episode, use the promo code Mike Bono, and get 10% off. Also, the Ride Home Rants podcast is brought to you by my own personal merch store, the Stupid Should Hurt merch store. I have hats, I have t-shirts, hoodies, coffee mugs, water bottles, notebooks, you name it, I've got it. The description and the link for that will be in the description of this episode. Also, right now, if you use the promo code WELCOME, I will give you 5% off of your first purchase. That's the Stupid Should Hurt merch store. Also, the Ride Home Rants podcast is brought to you by Tactical Brotherhood, all American-made apparel, which helps support the Second Amendment. You can also find all this in the description of this episode with the link, Tactical Brotherhood. Part of every proceed does go to helping veterans, as it is a very good cause. All American-made products made right here in Minnesota. Go and check them out. Use the promo code PATRIOT15 to get 15% off your purchase. Now, let's start the show. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Ride Home Rants podcast. This is, as always, your host, Mike Bono. I have a great guest for us today, a comic friend of mine. We were in the Top Dog Comedy Contest back in June together. We actually took first and second in that show based on the judges. The crowd kind of had other opinions with the people that got brought to the show, but I digress. My good buddy from Columbus, Tristan Shae, joins the show. Tristan, thanks for joining, brother.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So, how long have you been doing comedy?
I have only been doing comedy since January of this year. So about rounding out like 9 months in.
Okay. So, and a complete newbie, I would say, yeah.
Yeah. Still green around the gills, you know.
What's your thought of the comedy game being that fresh into it? It's talking to somebody who's been in the game 11 years. So, like, what's your thought process coming into this?
So my thought process is it's been really interesting to learn like how it all works, especially in like the Columbus scene. The Columbus scene, there's a lot of like really exciting things happening right now. So I hear a lot of stories of people who have been in it for years and they've kind of been stuck at one level, you know, like they feel like they're stuck at the open mic stage or something like that. They can't get booked on shows. But right now it's like if you turn around the corner, somebody's putting on a comedy show in Columbus. So for me, I feel like I joined at just the right time to where like there's opportunities left and right. And it's just a matter of kind of where can I grab onto this trajectory? And I'm an opportunist. So like for me, if there's not an opportunity that I see that I can get into, then I create my own opportunity.
That's the mindset you need coming into this. I wish I had that mindset when I started 11 years ago into comedy. It was more or less a buddy of mine asked me to go on stage at one of his open mics because he was like, dude, you're hysterical and I need to fill a spot. So like, just go on stage. And like, I went on and killed and kind of caught the comedy bug and have been doing it ever since. But it's a grind at the beginning. But like you said, I think COVID and coming out of that, like we were with everything that was shut down, and then people just wanted to do shows, so everybody was like, let's put a show here. So shows are popping up more and more that I've noticed, you know, more often than I'm used to seeing. You know, I didn't have a lot of opportunities starting out. My buddy was just running shows here and there, and he'd come pick me up, and we would just drive all over, and sometimes doing 2 and 3 shows a night in 2 or 3 different cities. You know what I mean? Like it was... And then turning around and going to my day job in the morning. That was fun. Yeah. 2 or 3 hours of sleep. But I was in my early 20s. You could do that then. You know, now I'm in my 30s. It's like, all right, it's 11 o'clock. Like, I'm going to be a bear tomorrow morning. Like, that's what it is for me.
So I'm rapidly approaching that stage, and I'm trying to get big enough before I'm 30 to where I don't have to do all that like grinding and then trying to go to work the next day.
It's a good plan. I hope you achieve that because, as somebody who loves seeing other comics grow and flourish in this business, it was a grind. Like, I remember driving back home from bumfuck Illinois to West Virginia in the middle of the night and not even having time to stop at home. I stopped at a truck shop, took a horse bath, and went to work. Like, I had been up for I think it was 36 straight hours.
Yeah.
And it was back then I could do it. You pound a Red Bull or a Monster and you're good to go for the day. But now it's like, I need 2 cups of coffee and a BFC Monster to get me through the day, just an 8-hour work day. Like, you know what I mean? And it gets to that point where early on, if you're grinding that hard, that early, it's like, is this even worth it? Do you have any of that mentality like right now? I mean, I know you have a lot of shows popping up here and there, and, it's a lot better than when I started way back a decade ago. But do you have that thought process like, man, I'm doing all this. Is this comedy game even worth it?
So the thing for me is that I have a very solid day job that I'm passionate about. Like in my day job, I'm a counselor trainee. So basically, like I'm an intern in school right now to be a counselor.
Okay.
So for me, comedy it's an outlet, right? Like having a job like that, it's like I'm carrying a lot of things that other people tell me. It's very heavy work. And so then I do that by day. At night, I get to go up on stage and like let it all out and like just, make mockery of life, right? Because so much of life is like so serious and everything else that I do that like finding a way to just like, this is all kind of ridiculous if you think about it in like a different way, right? Like, so kind of like being able to point out the ridiculous things or the funny things or whatever, it's like, it's very therapeutic for me to be able to go on stage and do comedy. So I think of comedy first and foremost as that. It's like, it's a hobby that lets me, process things in my own way. Like I am taking things that are like very serious, finding the humor in them, all of that. As far as making it into a career, right now I feel very like lucky and very, very blessed. Like the opportunities that I've had at this early in the game, it's been, for me, I haven't quite had that, like, is this worth it kind of question. But it's in like the back of my mind. I've had this like almost like this like thought process with myself where I'm like, at what point would I know that I need to throw in the towel? And for me, it's like if opportunities kind of stopped, I think it would be difficult for me to keep going with it because it's just such a it's competitive but that's another thing is that kind of I've learned very quickly that as competitive as it is, the more you collaborate with other people, the more successful you're going to be.
Right. Yeah, I had to come to that realization, early on. It was me and my buddy, and like I said, we were driving all over the place, doing 2-3 shows a night, the little open mic nights, just finding any bar that had an open mic night going and just getting up on stage to get that stage time in. And when he kind of went off and, had his day job that he was more passionate about than comedy, and comedy was just a hobby for him, and I had seen it and was like, you know what, I want to make a career out of this. So when he left comedy, I was like, you know what, I'm a smart enough guy. I could do this on my own. And for like 3 or 4 years doing it on your own is bullshit. Like, I'll tell you that. It's the worst, but I relate so much to what you just said because, like you said, with your day job, it's getting up on stage is a way to turn off everything and just make light of every situation. The way I got known and why people call me the angry white comic is because I worked in sales for these past 11 years. And I can't just go off on customers while I'm at at work, and you get those dumb fucking questions that you hear every day, and it's just like, it's not if I'm going to hear a dumb question today, it's what dumb question am I going to hear today. And I just turned around and just got on stage and just started basically word vomiting my day. Like that was what I did, and it was my therapy. You know what I mean? It was going out there, and yeah, I couldn't tell this person they were the dumbest person on the face of the planet because they didn't know they had to charge their flip phone. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I worked at cell phones, and a lady came in super pissed off because her phone just shut off and she didn't know what happened.
Oh my God.
So I was still kind of a smart ass punk at this point in time, and like I was just like, oh, well, have you been in the sun a lot? She was just like, what do you mean? I was like, oh, well, these things are actually solar powered, so if you're going into Walmart to do your shopping, if you just leave it on your dashboard, it'll turn back on as soon as you're done with your shopping. She's like, oh my God, that makes me feel so much better. She left not knowing I was being a smart ass. And she came back in an hour later with a hot, sweaty phone. Like, she had just left it on the dash of her car and, like, threw it at me. She's like, it's still not working. I was like, yeah, I really thought you knew I was joking. I was just trying to make light of my day. Did you open your box for your phone? She was like, yeah. I was like, you know that cord that was in there? She's like, yeah, I didn't know what that was. I was like, yeah, it's a charger. Like, plug it into the wall and it'll turn back on. And she had a flip phone, too, at this point. Now, this is the early 2000s. Like, it's not like smartphones.
Well, you know what's funny? What's funny about that is that, like, that was still the era where landlines were around. Yeah. So the idea that a phone was not connected to a cord was actually a new idea.
Yeah.
Like, how on earth do you not realize that? Like, phones are always plugged into walls at that point.
Yeah. And, like, I had a buddy of mine that worked there, and, like, she walked away, and he was just like, I really didn't think you were getting out of that. I was like, oh, I got a show tonight that you're coming to, man. And this story is definitely getting told on stage. Like, there's no doubt I'm not talking about this woman on stage right now. Like, I don't need to write material. That's where I'm at right now, is that my day jobs give me all the material I need. And it's what started my best joke in Stupid Should Hurt, because you hear so many stupid questions that, you know, you just want them to feel some sort of pain in their life for asking that question. And
right.
What started my merch store, the Stupid Should Hurt merch store. You know what I mean? And, like, that's where everyone's just like, dude, you're just the angry white comic that goes on these long-filled rants on stage. I was like, yeah, I have a lot of pent-up anger that I can't express at work, and this is my way to just yell into a microphone at a crowd full of people and just get my day out. But people relate to that. Have you found that in your comedy, like with what you do, telling about those stories on stage? Can you see, like, the realization in people's faces when you're telling those stories on stage? Yeah,
like, for me, my day job, obviously, like, I'm bound to confidentiality, right? I can't use anything from my job really in... Like, I can use the information, but I can't use, like, stories from people, right? So my inspiration mostly comes from being a dad. Like, my kid is honestly funnier than I am. And I, like, someone made a joke at my last show there. She was like, you owe your kid some royalties for all of your material. And I was like, she benefits. Don't worry. Anything I make from comedy, she benefits. But, yeah, so, like, a lot of my material is, like, about being a dad. It's, like, things my daughter said, like, the experience of raising a kid, or it's, like, about being married, like, things like that. I take, like, just everyday life, right? And that's, like, the most relatable things. And I think, like what you're talking about, like, a lot of people work shitty jobs with stupid people.
Yeah.
So if you take something from real life that a lot of people experience, then it's like the audience is right there with you.
Yeah. You know, and I've done shows where there's 4 people in the crowd. You know what I mean? Like, I've been doing it that long that, you know, there was times when I showed up, it's like, all right, so I'm performing for all the comics that are on the slate tonight, and that's it. But then you have shows that I did, literally it popped up on my time up. It was a year ago, this past August, because by the time the show airs, it'll be past the day. But it was a theater show in Mount Gilead, Ohio, at the Capitol Theater, and it was a packed house, and one of my best shows. But you know what? I love sometimes those smaller rooms, like the Attic is, it's a smaller comedy club, but it's an intimate where you can do a lot of crowd work. Have you ventured into crowd work yet, being this new into comedy?
Not as much as I think some people get right into it. Like I have friends who kind of started at the same time as me, and they're like, "You got to do more crowd work." For me, crowd work is like, it's such a risk, right? It's like a gamble.
Yeah.
Because I can think of funny things to respond to people. That's what got me into comedy, right? Is like every conversation I have is like, what's the next funny thing that someone could say? But when someone hits you with something where it's like they either give you not enough or too much, then it's like, and actually I've seen people handle that like masterfully, but that's not something that I've gotten into yet. I've gotten into a little bit. I have one joke where I lean into like the therapy thing, and I like do basically like a little like miniature therapy session to make fun of some things that therapists do when I'm on stage. That's the only crowd work that I've really gotten into.
Oh, dude, once you get into it, it's so much fun. I fought it for the longest time. Like, I would just ignore the people that were being assholes in the crowd. And then, I guess, like me, you've been in this game long enough. You get enough assholes that are just talking over top of the microphone. It's like, well, now I'm going to say something. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's where... But once you master that fine line between just being a complete dick and being funny at the same time, oh, mwah, chef's kiss. It's gold. Like, and a lot of times, I've even noticed, like, now, like, a lot of my shows, like, people are like, oh, man, you're you're doing a lot of crowd work. It's like, yeah, I mean, that's what I feel like I'm getting better with just doing crowd work. Mm-hmm. And it's funnier stuff because, A, if somebody's coming to a comedy show, for the people out there that don't, like, understand this, like, they're coming there to have a good time. So if somebody's, like, continuously talking and ruining the show, like, now that I'm talking back to them, the entirety of the crowd is now focused in on hating this person. And it just brings the crowd back on your side. I've been bombing before. Like, it's not a matter of if, it's when you're going to bomb on stage. It happens to every comic. Even these big headliners have bombed a lot in their career. But if you can just start talking to somebody and then get the crowd back on your side, no matter what you say, like, they're going to laugh.
Yeah. And I saw you do that at the Attic, where, like, I'm sure your material was funny, but you used maybe like 1 minute of material. And the rest was crowd work. And then that was what the judges ended up voting as like the best, because it was all like off the cuff. It was like not planned ahead of time, and you were just responding to whatever the audience was throwing at you.
Yeah, it like I was pissed. Like I was like, I had such a solid 5 minutes for this contest set. And it was starting because I came out the country. I knew nobody was coming out the country. Like, so that I worked, my whole set was about me growing up in West Virginia and being country, and nobody else had. And then people just started talking shit, and I lost my mind. And then I got the light. I was like, oh, wow, yeah, I just used my entire stage time just losing my shit.
But you know what? In a room like the Attic, where everyone's so close, and a lot of them were there to see other people, like in a contest, right? So they have kind of like a vested interest in throwing you off. Yeah. And then to watch you go like tit for tat with anybody who was trying to give you shit in that show, like, I think that was what was most impressive about that, is that like people were trying to throw you off. And you were like, well, no, that's not going to happen. Like, I've got the microphone.
I've been in this game way too long for that to happen. And I say this every time somebody says something to me at one of my shows. It's just like, you know what? I love hecklers. I've done contests where it was strictly a heckler's show, and I took second in it. And, like, the whole point of that show was to handle the hecklers, and whoever did it the best won the show. And, like, I say it all the time. It's like, yeah, if you want to talk shit, go ahead. But I'm just letting you know, I have a microphone, and you are all in proximity to this speaker system, and I'll ruin your fucking night. I'm telling you that right now.
Yeah.
Like, it's so much fun to me. And it was funny because even at the Attic, I got heckled by my wife on stage, too, as well. Like, that was even a fun part, that she's never said anything during one of my shows. This was the first time she's heckled me during one of my shows. And we've been together 8 years, and she's missed 2 shows in 8 years. One she had food poisoning, and the other one she had COVID. So like, pretty good excuses like why she wasn't there. So I mean, but yeah, it's just like because I didn't even realize it was her. Like I was just in that zone on stage, and I just heard a woman's voice, and that's all I heard on stage. And I was like, "Who? Oh, that's my fucking wife!" Like that. Just, like, I was actually.
I think it was funny because I was watching that set, and I think that was like I had talked to you before the set and everything, so I was like already like rooting for you. That was the moment where I decided objectively you won me over. Like if I hadn't have known you before that set and I was watching, that was the moment where I was like, if I didn't know you, that's where you would have won me over.
Talking shit to my wife on stage.
Exactly.
And the sad thing is, that's how me and her are though. Like people were like, how do you turn off that stage persona and go back to your daily life? And I just look at them like, a stage persona? The fuck's a stage persona? I'm the same lovable asshole I am on stage and I am off. Like, and me and my wife, and that's just like, I'm surprised, honestly, because I'm full-blooded Italian. My wife is full Irish. We're a very loud household, as it is. Mm-hmm. Like, it's just two loud nationalities living together. And people probably think, like, our neighbors are probably like, wow, these assholes moved in next door and, like, they are just fighting constantly. But no, we're just communicating in a easier fashion. Like, it's like, turn the AC down. I'm fucking doing it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's just how we talk to each other. And it works because I've said this on stage, too, as well. I was like, yeah, my wife's, she's just like me, just with tits. You know what I mean? Like, that's that's where we're at. We're the same person. She just has bigger tits.
Yeah. And it's funny you say that about like the stage persona because it's I mean to a certain degree it's like there's a character that you have on stage, right? Like it's not in every situation in your life do you have an actual microphone and everybody has to listen to you. But that general like your material, if you're trying to be somebody who you're not, you're gonna bomb every single time. Yeah. Because you have to you really have to be authentic when you're doing comedy. Like even though you're on stage, you're performing. With stand-up comedy specifically, it's like the most authentic art form there is. Because people can tell when you're being not genuine. Like people can tell, and it's just they will back away so quickly. And I kind of had to go through that journey with like my writing style, where I was watching a lot of like more like dark comedy, and I was like, I want to get into doing like dark jokes. Like Anthony Jeselnik was like really like I was really like into watching him. And like I was like, okay, I'm gonna try this. I'm gonna try writing some short jokes with like that dark turn and things like that. And all of my friends were like, you can't do that. They were like, you're not an asshole. Like you're not a douchebag. You can't like when you're off stage, like you're not that guy. So like when you're on stage and doing that kind of stuff, people can tell. And I was like, it really clicked for me that I was like, yeah, that's just not I have to be genuine to who I am.
Yeah, and you know, people ask me all the time, they're like, oh my God, how did you think of that joke? How did you write that joke? I was just like, write that joke? That's a true story that happened to me. Like that's actually what happened. Like everything so far, people ask me like, is everything you say on stage true? And to this point, yes. You know, and people like, oh, I really wish I could have done this joke because I wanted to do it at the Attic, and it's the best joke I have, and I've done it for 11 years, and it still gets a laugh. And I've just dubbed it my rape joke. And yeah, it sounds bad, but let me get into this for the new listeners out there. Like, it's not about rape, but it was about the first time I stayed at an ex-girlfriend's place. Like, she told me what side of the bed I had to sleep on. Like, that's... And I asked her, like, what is that side, like your side or something? She goes, no, that side's just closest to the door in case somebody breaks in and tries to rape me. To which I just looked at her and went, does this happen a lot?
Is that why I'm here? Like I'm security?
It's like I was like, because if it's gotten to the point where you've started to prepare for it, I think you have grounds to break your lease. I'm just throwing that out there. Like, this is a true thing that happened. Like, this is a true story and a real conversation that I had with someone that I was dating at the time, and like it. Yeah. And I remember having a fight with her about this situation that wasn't going to happen. You know what I mean? Like, I was just like, what? And I was like, and what do you think's gonna happen? He's gonna break in, get all the way to the bedroom, and go, oh, fuck it, she's on the other side, and leave? Like, do you think that's like?
Just like, no, like this dude looks like he can take me.
Yeah, this tall, skinny Dago looks like he could take me. I'm out of here. Like, that's just not gonna happen. Like,
he'll open the door and be like, somebody beat me to it.
Oh, I told you it was the next house over. Someone's already got this one. Let's go. Like, it was the dumbest thing. And, like, people didn't think that joke was true for the longest time. Like, there's no way. Like, that's the situation that you were in. Well, I was on stage at a local bar back in West Virginia, and I was telling that story. And I just happened to be looking around the crowd, and I looked up, and who happens to be there?
No, you're shitting me.
She was there. And she was sitting at the bar. Everybody is in tears laughing at this part of the joke. And I waited for that laugh break that comics always wait for, and it died down. I went, oh, and if anyone thinks this is bullshit, you can ask her yourself. She's the one in the pink shirt sitting at the bar with the steam coming out of her ears. Like, and she just slammed her beer down and just, like, stormed out of there and like, left before I finished my set. But I was just like, that's sweet justice that she was there.
Yeah. To know that, like, she became the joke, you know?
Yeah, she was, I mean, she wasn't happy with me to begin with. You know, obviously she was an ex at this point in time. But it was...
Yeah.
And everyone was like, oh my God, you told that in front of her. I was like, well, she broke up with me via text message, so she deserves it. You know what I mean? So,
it was payback.
Yeah, I was like, I don't give a shit. I'm not dating her anymore. I don't fucking care.
You know how lucky that is to get the opportunity to turn somebody into a joke like that for revenge? Like, not everybody gets to do that.
No, you don't. It's a rare time to get to do that, and it's great because I've had to, like, rework that joke a little bit now that I'm married and everything like that. Because I used to start that joke as like, well, recently single, and then I would just lead into that joke. But the funny part to me was, like, I would always start that, well, recently single, and nobody would laugh, or, like, they would all just look at me, and I would, like, thank you for that. By the way, like, it is like you would think laughter would hurt at that point in time, but no, the stunned silence is what really was like, yeah, that figures. All right, go ahead, funny man. Like, let's hear what you have to say. Like, it's just
yeah, when nobody's surprised.
Yeah, it was just like the look of, okay, what are we reading from our diary here? I thought we were at a comedy show. Like, that's, but yeah. I mean, I've changed that joke up a little bit to lead into it because when me and my wife were first together and she started coming to shows and, you know, we were engaged, I was still starting that joke with, well, recently single. And I still remember the look on her face when I did that for the first time while she was at a show. And then she was just like, is this how he's breaking up with me? Like, is this what happens with comics? Like, they just get on stage and it's like, oh, by the way, it's over. You know what I mean? I was like, no, I just haven't reworked that joke yet. I didn't know how to lead into it. So that's just... We'll figure it out on the way home. We'll talk about it on the way home. But
you had to explain, like, memorizing and like no, this is my type 5. It's just, it takes some time to change it.
Yeah, I haven't had an open mic to rework an intro to that joke, and that's just, I've memorized this joke, and I'm sorry. We're fine. We just bought a house together. You think I'm just break up with you? We just no, you're going to have to kill me to get rid of me. We're in this together for 30 years at least. It's like,
yeah, until this mortgage is paid off.
You got till
I'm not single.
You get till this house is paid for. And we have a kid, a son. Well, he's a stepson to me, but obviously, his dad's not in the picture, and I've picked up the payments for the last 8 years. So yeah, he's mine.
Yeah.
But, it would cause a lot of stink that way. But like you said earlier in the show, like, I still have pages and pages of jokes that I've written about my son that I haven't got to try yet.
Yeah.
And everybody that I kind of, like, test my jokes out on, like, I just kind of say them in, like, conversation with, like, coworkers and stuff like that to kind of see if it's going to get a chuckle and say, yeah, I can make this work. And I have a feeling I have some gold right in my hand. Like it's gonna be good. Like I'll tell this one, and it was about the first time my son had cussed for the first time. He was 7 or 8 years old, and I was at work at the time, and I was working just a shitty factory job. Like I worked for the Walmart distribution center, and just the break your back type of work. Like it was brutal. And I was on one of the few smoke breaks that we got throughout the day, and my wife knew because they were at the same time every day. So I looked out and my wife calls me, and I answered. She was just like, well, you'll never believe what your son just said. I was like, oh, now I have ownership of him. He's not actually mine, but now he must have really fucked up. She was like, well, he cussed in front of me for the first time. I was like, oh? What did he say? She goes, I'm going to start this by, I'm not mad because he used it correctly. I was just like, now, I was like, I got like 2 minutes though, I got to go back in there. You better hurry this story up. Well, they were coming around a turn. They were at a stop sign. There was all these kids just in the middle of the road, like, blocking the road, just being kids and playing. And he was in the back seat, and he looked, he goes, oh, what are these fucking guys doing? And at first, my wife was just like, yeah, wait a minute, like, what did you... She was just like, I couldn't even be mad because he used it correctly, and he's 8. Like,
Yeah.
I was like, well...
It's tough when they get it that quickly.
Yeah, and he's faster than me. Like, you saw a little bit of how quick-witted I am on stage and stuff like that.
Yeah.
He's faster than me with his comebacks and his witty comebacks. I was like, he's either going to be a salesman or a comedian. There's no chance for him with how quick-witted he is. And it's phenomenal. Sometimes, like, when he says something, if I don't have my joke notebook, like, within reach, I got to get my phone. I'm like, hold on, that's going to be gold. I got to say it again, just how you said it. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, kids are gold. Yeah, like you said, like you were talking about your daughter, right?
Yep. So I have a similar joke that I wrote, and she's only 3. There was a time where I forgot something. We were like going to go out to dinner, and I forgot like a gift card or something. Like that was what we were going to use to go get dinner somewhere. So I went back into the apartment, and I came back down to the car, and then I opened the door, and immediately she's like, little bitch. It's become like one of my bread and butter jokes to like tell that story. Like I've added to it over time, but like a 3-year-old, like just no hesitation calling you a little bitch. And so then she went on like a whole phase for a while where she was like, because we laughed, right? Like my wife and I are both like, there's a reason I do comedy, right? And like, so we both laughed, and like that just reinforced it. So then she started testing out who she could call a little bitch. And it was like, for months, we had to kind of like distinguish, like, okay, you can say it at home, but you can't like call grandma a little bitch.
Right. Yeah. We're having that problem now because my son's 14 now. Like, and he just, if he has no filter like me, like if it pops into his head, it's coming out of his fucking mouth. And like we've been like around his grandma and stuff like that, and she said something, and he would just go, oh, Jesus Christ, meme. Like, it's like, dude, not only did you just cuss at your grandmother, but now you're taking the Lord's name in vain, like, at the same time.
Right.
Like, you almost have the trifecta right there, man. Like, if you would have added a fuck in there, like, you would have had it right on but yeah, it's just, like, all right, at home, whatever, my wife and I get a laugh out of it, I get material out of it. When you're at school, when we're getting calls that you're cussing kids out at school, like, no.
Yeah, I'm waiting for those. Like, my daughter's in preschool right now, and like, I think there's no way that she's keeping it clean at school. I think they just don't care. But once she goes to an actual like public school, I'm like, we're going to be in that office every week.
Yeah. It got to the point where my wife and the assistant principal were on a first name basis.
Yep. I'm waiting for that. Yeah, that's my future.
Yeah, I'm giving you a little glimpse of what you get to see into your future. Oh, man. So, what do you got coming up, as far as comedy shows? lined up? Any big gigs or anything that you got in the works?
Yeah. So when does this come out?
This is going to come out probably mid to late September.
Okay. At the end of September, I believe it's September 28th, I'm going to be a part of a sketch show at Cafe Kerouac in Columbus. It's called Something Sketchy. That's one. The one that I'm really excited about, October. Actually, yeah, I have one October 12th. October 12th is going to be at the Attic. It's a versus battle. Me and my friend Heather Scott, we're going to do like a battle against each other. And then there's a show at the Funny Bone on October 18th, I believe. And it's a Wednesday night jokes mania. And so it's basically like if they turn WrestleMania into a comedy show. So there's they're doing like tag team matches, like with comedy. I'm going to be part of like a battle royale, where everybody gets 4 minutes and you're just trying to compete against I think it's like 6 comedians total in that battle royale. So that want to be a good time for sure. And until then, I've got my own podcast that Heather, who I just mentioned, Heather and I are doing. It's called Comedic Behavior Therapy. So we've been releasing that every Thursday.
Awesome. So yeah, tell us a little bit about the podcast.
Yeah, so the podcast kind of deals with my background, like my work and comedy. So we're kind of like, the idea is how do we use humor to cope with things? So I kind of have to be careful with like how I present my credentials because I don't want people to take the mental health portion like too seriously. But it's really like, you know, whatever's like going on, a lot of like what we ask guests, like kind of like what's going on currently in their life. And like, we kind of like riff off of that and like make jokes out of it and stuff like that. And like, but at the same time, trying to have that perspective of like, you know, what's a different way we could look at this? Like, so it's like, it's kind of just leaning into that, you know, how can comedy be therapeutic for people? We have a lot of like comics as guests. We plan to have some more like kind of mental health professionals and kind of just like look more into blending those two things. Right now it's been very like, we're only 6 episodes in, so we're still like very like fresh to the podcast game. But yeah, it's for anybody who's interested, you can find it on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, all the major podcast platforms.
That's awesome. I remember starting podcasting 3 years ago, right in the heart of COVID. I never thought it was something I would stick with. You know what I mean? I was like, I'll do it till shows open up. It'll be something fun I can do in my spare time because I'm sitting around the house right now because I'm not working. There's no comedy shows. Like, fuck do I do? Like, you know, it was like kind of that point, but like, I love podcasting. I never thought it was something because I didn't even really listen to podcasts before I even got into podcasting. Like, that's how green I was. And, you know, 3 years later, I love doing this. Like, this is fun for me. This is my therapy when I'm not on stage, getting to sit here and talk to other people and getting to know them a little bit better. And like I said, I know me and you have been talking back and forth ever since the Attic show in June, and you know, trying to work together again. And you know, I can't wait, and I hope we can definitely get that chance again to get on stage together again. Oh
yeah, for sure. Yeah, I've been working on trying to put together some more of my own shows. It's you know, like that's one thing. Like there are a lot of opportunities, but it's a matter of like when you're creating your own, it's like it's finding the venue, it's finding how to do ticketing, like all that kind of stuff. We had one venue that we did a show at, and then we kind of had some issues with it, so then we had to look for a new one. So building your own shows is if you're getting into comedy, that's one route to kind of make your own path, but don't expect it to be easy. You're like we're working twice as hard, probably more than twice as hard.
I did that once. I put on one show, and it was at Mad Labs Theater in Columbus, Ohio.
Yeah.
And it was such a nightmare setting everything up, tickets, lighting, stage, finding the comics. It's just like, dude, I just want to get on stage and tell my dumb jokes to people. Like, that's, like, it was fun to get to see that business side of the industry and everything like that, but that's like, yeah, no, I'll just be the entertainer, and like I give props to these bookers and promoters because it's not for me.
Yeah, there's so many things you don't even think about. Like, it was like I would think I had one thing figured out, and then someone was messaging me like, the QR code has given me an error, and so I like went to it, and it's like the page won't load from the QR code, so then I had to remake all the flyers with a new QR code that was actually working, and like It's just stuff like that. It's like, it's little headaches that you like never see coming.
Yeah.
And then you just got to like, it's constant problem solving. But once you get, like, if you successfully put on a show, like the show we did, I think the venue was only supposed to hold about 50 people and we sold closer to 60 tickets. So we had people packed in this room. And once you do that, it's like you get that like that rush and like you're like, we did it. We know we accomplished this thing. We put so much work into it and whatever. But then there's also then you have like this like come down where like for me, I had to take like a week and just like meditate because I was like, what if we can't do it again? Like, you know, how do you keep up this success and things like that? So it's like you will put yourself through emotional hell trying to put on your own shows.
Yeah, absolutely. And like that's why I was just like, you know what? It was fun to see that side and get to produce, host, and finish off a show, but never again. Like I'm not doing that again. Like it was a pretty good success, but no more. Like that's it for Bono and producing shows. But Tristan, we are running down near the end of the episode here, and I do have to get this segment in because if I don't, the manager of the podcast will kill me. And that we haven't done it in a little while because we've had some people on where we couldn't really do this part of the show. They're a little bit more serious shows, but it is the Fast Fitty 5. 5 random questions from the wonderful manager of the podcast, Johnny Fitty Falcone. And Tristan, these have nothing to do with what we've been talking about for the entire, 40 minutes we've been talking here now. They're kind of rapid fire, but you can elaborate if you need to. So if you are ready, we will get rolling.
Daddy. Okay. I'm just trying to... Getting interrupted here for a second.
No, you're good. If you got to deal with the daughter, we'll deal with her, then we'll...
Okay, yeah. Just give me just 1 second.
Yeah, go ahead. Do what you got to do, man.
I need you to work.
Hey, Mommy said no.
Oh, you don't have to go to bed right now. Just give me like 5 more minutes, okay?
I'm not seeing your phone.
Not right now. Maybe later, okay? Go back out there and wait. I'll be about 5 minutes, then we can play.
Oh.
Thank you. All right.
The
Sorry
joys
about
of, you're good. The joys of kids.
Yeah.
I love these real shows like this, though. That makes it more fun for me. But anyways, all right. So Fast 55, 5 random questions, kind of rapid fire, but you can elaborate if you need to. So if you're ready, man.
Yep, I'm ready.
Who's the better superhero, Batman or Spider-Man?
Ooh. Do I have to give a reason?
You don't have to.
Okay. I'm going to go Batman.
Good call. Question number 2. If you could be one animal, what would you be? A rhinoceros or a pterodactyl? That's not even... okay. A rhinoceros or a pterodactyl?
Pterodactyl. Being able to fly would be awesome.
Yeah. He has an animal question in every single one of these, and he sent me these today for all the new listeners out there. Like I didn't have time to prepare for these, so like these are like you're getting to see me read these for the first time too as well. All right, the best flavor of chips is
probably sour cream and like cheese and sour cream. What is that? I can't even think of what it's called. Sour cream and cheddar. That's
sour cream and cheddar. Okay.
The cheese ones.
The cheesy ones.
They're orange.
The orange ones. They're awesome.
The orange chips.
If you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be?
Ooh. I've never been, but I've always wanted to go to the Pacific Northwest. Just seems like a very cool, you get like beaches, you get mountains, all that. So somewhere in like Washington, Oregon, somewhere around there.
And last question, and I knew he was going to do this because I'm talking to a comic. Your favorite comic is?
Oh, that's a tough one.
Yeah.
I think if I could say one person who really has impacted my style, Tom Segura.
Yeah. I love this.
I think I don't know if he's my favorite, but definitely he's the most influential on me.
Okay. I get it because, I mean, I'm the same way. Like Bill Burr, kind of like that's influential because we both go on these like long filled rants on stage. Like that's kind of, I guess, who I emulate on stage is being why I got into comedy because he just goes up there and just bitches about his day and it goes on about his life and gets laughs. But Tom Segura, Bert Kreischer, seeing both of them live, you can't go wrong with either of those two.
Yeah, well, and Tom tells a lot of stories, and a lot of his stories are about like the kind of the same stuff that I draw material from. He talks about his kids, he talks about interactions with strangers, stuff like that. So, his timing, like just I feel like I watch his sets, and I kind of like do like a metronome in my head where I'm like, what is the beat he's keeping on with these jokes, and then I just I feel like I try to emulate that a lot.
That's a good idea. That's not a bad person to emulate for sure.
Yeah. He's killing it right now. So.
But that was the Fast 55. And
all right.
He's killing me with these questions. Like, he sends me, like, last minute. Like, it's fun. I love him to death, Johnny Fitty Falcone, the manager of the podcast. But that is actually going to do it for this week's episode of the Ride Home Rants podcast. Tristan, I give every guest this opportunity at the end of the show. I'm going to give you about a minute. If there's anything you want to get out there, whether it's for your podcast, any shows, anything like that, or just a good message, I'm going to give you about a minute. The floor is yours, man.
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram and TikTok. It's the Tristan Shae. That's SHAE, not like the butter. And then my podcast with Heather Scott. Heather Scott's also very hilarious. Another comic from Columbus. That podcast is called Comedic Behavior Therapy, and you can find that wherever you listen to podcasts. Be sure to check that out. As far as shows, if you're in Columbus, just follow me on Instagram. My shows are always on there. So,
all right, yeah, I love it when people can get stuff out there. Everyone, I will put all of the links to his handles, everything like that, will be in the description of the show, where you can find Tristan and his podcast and everything like that. But like I said, that's going to do it for this week's episode of the Ride Home Rants podcast. I want to again thank Tristan Shae for joining the show. This was a lot of fun to actually get to sit down with another fellow comic and actually just get to shoot the shit and not be talking to coaches and professionals and stuff like that and actually getting to talk to another comic. I love to get to do that, and thank you for coming on. We really appreciate it. And as always, if you enjoyed the show, be a friend, tell a friend. If you didn't, tell them anyways. They might like it just because you didn't. That's going to do it for me, and I will see y'all next week. The Ride Home Rants podcast is brought to you by Dubby Energy. Energy drinks made for gamers, streamers, and podcasters alike. For gamers, streamers, and podcasters alike. Go to the link in the description where you can find the best energy drinks out there. Less caffeine than a cup of coffee. Also, no jitters and no crash afterwards. Use the promo code Mike Bono and get yourself 10% off. Also, the Ride Home Rants podcast is brought to you by my favorite sponsor of the show, and that is Shankit Golf. Golf apparel made for the everyday golfer. We might not go out and shoot a 6 under par. We're probably going to shoot a 6 over par, but this is going to give us the gear that's going to help us rocket on and off of the course. Go to the link in the bio, use the promo code Mike Bono, and get yourself 10% off there as well.